So basically, first off, can you introduce yourself for the people that don't know you? I'm lucky enough to have worked with you before and know you. But for those that don't know you yet, who are you and what do you do?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Dom. It's always a pleasure to be involved in anything that you have your hand in. Thanks for asking me here. Yes, hello, everybody. My name is Sammi Doll. I play for an assortment of bands. Most recently, I play for Kat Von D. I play for IAMX as the second synth player, and I have my own solo project under the name Sammi Doll.
What are you working on at the moment? Obviously, there's stuff going on with Kat Von D at the moment. What projects do you have that you want to promote, you want to plug, that you can tell us about?
Okay, well, let's start with Kat, because that's the most recent and the one that has been nonstop. I have been, so just to catch everybody up a little bit on the background of this, I joined Kat Von D's band last year, and she and I had worked together previously. She sang on a couple IAMX songs, so that was our connection there. And she played me some of her demos, and she was like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I think I would love to play this if you ever want to do it live." And she was like, "Whoa!" And then she called me a couple years later, and that's what we're doing. So we had plans, just like everybody else, to go on tour last year, and whoop, whoop, everything got canceled. So we really took that time to take her demos and her ideas and everything that would have been on the album and really reinvent it. And we really came out with this. We spent all the time in quarantine. I moved into her place for a couple months with my cat and another one of the band members, and we just really recreated her ideas, but in a more cohesive, darker, melancholic synthwave kind of overtone for the entire album. And we finished it. The guys from Gunship produced it, and those guys are so cool. They just know their shit so good. It's like, I feel like I sent them like my turd production, like a bunch of turds, and they were just over there polishing them, I was like, "Sorry guys, here you go." And then it came back and I was like, this is literally the ugly duckling story. Yeah, so and that doesn't reflect on Kat. That's just my opinion of what I had given up. So yeah, that album is coming out on August 27th. It's called Love Made Me Do It. And we just released the last single before the album release. Is called Fear You, and that music video was just released on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you. I feel like it's my favorite song on the album. It's really moody. I think a lot of these songs on this record, I think everybody can kind of relate to. It's a heartbreak record. It's a record about getting out of a toxic cycle, with somebody you love. It's kind of an answer to anybody that has ever been in that scenario, and I think everything's really relatable. There's a couple songs where it's like, you can relate to feeling like you're nothing, feeling like you're not heard, feeling like, you need to get this sort of toxic feeling out. You need to stop the pattern, and it's a great songs to break up to. That's coming out on August 27th. So that will be followed by, we have a record release show, which we haven't announced yet, which is coming up really quick. And then a couple dates here in the US before we have, assuming the world doesn't implode and assuming that everything is going to plan, we have plans to hit Europe in May, and we have a US tour in February.
Fantastic.
So that's Kat. My stuff, Sammi Doll. So yeah, I haven't really had time to do my own stuff just based on like release schedule, because I don't want to step on anybody. So with Kat releasing all of her stuff, leading up, she's got a huge plan, and everything is like going towards an album release, and I just have a couple singles here and there. So it's like I will sprinkle them in when I feel like I'm not going to step on anybody's toes. You know what I mean? Not toes, but like I don't want to feel like I'm riding on the wave of somebody else's movement. So I have another single that I did with Sean Bevan and Juliette Bevan, who co-wrote the last song that I did, Enemy. So the new song is called Paradox. Awesome. And I just need to finish the music video, and then I'll have an opportunity. I think somewhere probably in November, I'm expecting to be able to drop that. So it's far enough away from the cat release and the shows, and it's still something this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting. I remember listening to that stuff and just really excited for you. You're putting out your own material, and I do want to squeeze another music theme question in while I've got you, because because you're now releasing your own stuff and you've done a lot of work with other people over the years. How was it kind of putting yourself? Was it a new challenge pushing yourself to do your solo stuff? Because again, you have a strong image, but it's usually part of somebody else's. You know what I mean? You work with IAMX, you work with Cat Von D, and now you're going out on your own with your own stuff. What was the challenge like going from that, just going from IAMX and the kind of, I'm not going to say comfort of working within the IAMX setting or the Cat Von D setting, and really putting your own name out there?
Yeah, it was extremely hard. It was and a lot of people had to convince me to do it because I wanted to hide behind a moniker. I really did. I wanted to hide behind a band scenario. I wanted to feel safe in a group environment and feel like I could share the responsibility. If it tanked, then it was like, oh guys, we did not, you know what I mean? But in the end, when it came down to it, with the direction, once I kind of separated it from Bullet Height and was moving forward, I had somebody working with me that was like, you need to do your own thing, because Bullet Height is its own thing. It's its own sound. It's its own entity. And where you're going, there's no room for that. You know what I mean? And vice versa. And it's like, oh man, you're right. And I'm like, okay. And I went through a bunch of, I've probably fought with this person for a long time. He was managing me at the time. I probably fought with him for a long time with different monikers and different ideas and being like, oh, I want to involve this person. And then I remember Juliet Bevan taking me to coffee, and she was like, dude, you have it in you so badly. Why don't you just go under your name? She's like, just go under your name. Everybody knows who you are. Like, everyone knows the name. If you're just trying to like start under a different project, like, do you remember how hard it was getting Bullet Height up and going? I'm like, yes, I do. And I already have a following for people that just follow me for all of the other things that I do. So it really was the natural progression, but I was so uncomfortable with it because it was like I was bearing. I think the part, it wasn't that I felt like I couldn't do it. It was just more the responsibility of attaching my own name to something and going under like, oh, it's Sammi Doll. It's like, ew, why would you want to call your band that? And it's like, oh, but it's not my band, it's me. And then thinking about like, how does that translate? It's like, okay, well, who's doing all the work here? Okay, got it. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, once I started like breaking it down that way, it was like, I didn't have the responsibility to share with a band because there was no band. It was just me.
Yes.
So, it was extremely hard. And you know what? I wouldn't have had the confidence to do this. It's funny. One of my pet peeves is when people say, oh, this is a nice stepping stone for you. I hate that, because it's like, but what do you mean? I'm giving it my all.
Yeah, this is you. This is like you putting it out there.
Yeah, and it's like, what do you mean? And I have had people say that to me about most every project that I've been in.
Right.
And now I understand in hindsight, being able to relate to Sammi Doll as a solo artist, and Sammi Doll that was in a shoegaze band in Los Angeles, that just didn't really she was playing the part, she wasn't playing a role. Yeah. So how my ability as a performer has really grown over the years, and I have IAMX to thank so much for that. They moved me to the front. That there was a tour where I was in the back, a couple tours that I was in the back with the drummer, and then they moved me to the front stage, and it was like I all of a sudden had a much bigger responsibility as a performer there. And then he gave me more parts where it was like me kind of coming out and doing stuff, and like there was a part that I was doing some like vocal stuff with him, and I like was out in the middle of the stage, and it was like this all helped me get more confident and comfortable as a performer. And then when Bullet Height came, it was like, okay, now it's just 2 people, not 5, not 4, it's 2 people. But John is so extremely talented that I could really lean on him. Like every harmony he hears harmonies dogs hear. I'm like, how are you picking that up? But he just knows what he wants, and he's so good at everything. It was like, okay, but I have then assumed the role of being a dual singer with this person. So it's like people are only looking at us. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, how do I make this performance interesting so it's not just two people standing around? So that really helped me grow from that. And I really, it's funny, I used to say like I needed IAMX to become the front person that Bullet Height needs, but I really needed all of these projects to be the person that Sammi Doll really needs.
Awesome. That's a beautiful point you make there, Sammy, and I'm really happy that you found that part of yourself as well. Really excited for your future. I wanted to ask again, just because it just seems like it's a nice thing to ask. Where did your fascination come from for synths? You know, because you talk about, you know, you staying up all night and having the fascination from making, you know, if you're building a sound, and I love that, you know, talking about your ADHD. Where did that fascination come from? Were you sat in a bed, you know, because obviously there's sometimes you know that's some hefty gear. You know, you've got to look around and stuff. Have you been into it since you were a kid? Where did the fascination come from for electronic music and for actually being able to play it live, do it? You know, because it's a lot. You know, a lot of people can sit. You know, I've experimented with software and stuff. You know, just making beats just on my laptop. You know, but like actually being able to play it, actually learning everything, it's a whole other level. So where did that fascination first and the passion really? Because that's what I get from you. The passion come from.
Honestly, I've always been a fan when it comes to the music that I chose to listen to, you know, growing up. Like, you know, I was surrounded by like classic rock and just kind of all different types of music. What I didn't know was that when my parents lived in England, they met in a band. My mom was a singer and she played keyboard. My dad would like to think he would sing and would play. I know he's probably going to listen to this and be like, you asshole, and play the bass. And but when my mom moved my sister and I to America, there was no live music back. There's no live music influence in the house. So I would really like to say that a little bit of it is kind of in my blood. I think what's weird is I've always, even from a really young age, wanted to be a performer. I found something the other day where I was going through a bunch of stuff that my mom saved, and it was like from 5th grade. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, a rock star. And I was like, well, okay. Like, I guess I was kind of destined to do this. But when it came to synths, I think so. I was gifted a just like a little Yamaha / like Casio kind of all-in-one keyboard when I was 10, and it had I'm all self-taught, so I learn by ear. And this is also a thing where ADD comes in really well, is if I'm on something, if I want to play something, I will 100% not leave until I can at least know it. You know what I mean? And that has always been a blessing and a curse. So that is the same when it came to synths. I played in a band in high school and then kind of took a break from music for a bit. And then the next band that I joined was the shoegaze band I was talking about. And there was an ad on Craigslist, which is like a classifieds thing in the US. And it was this, and I'd seen so many. I'm like, oh, maybe I want to join a band. Maybe I don't. I'd seen so many. But this guy, Brian, who I'm still really, really good friends with, he was looking for a female keyboard player. And I met up for him with coffee. And I was like, look, I can't play very well, but I can sing, and I have to be in your band. And he was like, what? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't play very well, but I will. And he's like, I don't think that's going to work. I'm like, please give me 4 songs and I will come to rehearsal and I will promise that I will play them. And he's like, this is so weird. Okay. And so he gave me the 4 songs, and I think I went out and I bought, an all-in-one keyboard or something that day too. This was when I was like 21 maybe. And I had like, I don't know, 3 days or something to learn them. And you bet I showed up to that rehearsal and nailed it, nailed the part. So again, blessing and curse. Blessing when it comes to when you really, really want to put your mind to something. You remember, like all the basics were there. I knew kind of how to, like, I didn't take it seriously as a kid, but I knew that I wanted to play in that band so bad that I made it happen. And the same thing happened with synths and IAMX. So as I was sitting there, like, I remember Chris being like, oh, you have to program your own sounds. Like, I'm not doing that for you. But I'm happy to guide you if I think that it needs one thing or another or whatever. And I was like, okay, no problem. I didn't tell him I didn't know how to do any of that.
Amazing. What a cool.
So I had, I had 2 weeks to learn 23 songs and learn everything about sound design. So my friend
Wow.
Avi, who is so good at synths and music, he's an amazing musician. He was just like, if you say yes to this band and you get accepted, I will fly from Austin and I will help you. I will bring you all the software. I will help you, whatever you need, whatever questions. And so, and he sent me like loads of these, like how basically a walk around on how to use Logic and how to use MainStage. We were using MainStage at the time, and through all the soft synthware of MainStage, I was able to use like Massive, all the native instruments. So like Massive, Absinthe, all of like the Roland software that comes with the Jupiter X, all of that. It was really, really eye-opening into a lot of these vintage synths that I wouldn't ever get my little grubby green hands on back then. Anybody would be like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing, because I didn't. But that is how I learned. So it was like, I have 2 weeks to learn 23 songs and program a sound for all of my parts, or sounds for all of my parts. That I work really well with. It's like, okay, you give me this. This is my deadline. This is, I remember not sleeping and not eating. It was just like that. That is a con of having ADHD, because I remember just taking my medication, and because I was so hyper focused in on what I was doing, I wouldn't eat. I was losing weight, and I slept maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. But I made it happen. Yeah. Yes, that is a very extreme case. And when I got there was like a whole month before the tour, so I was like, okay, this was really silly. But I showed up prepared, and through that, by me telling you the story, it comes back into where it came from. I was kind of, because I wanted so badly to show up and know my shit, that I needed to know everything, so that if he was like, hey, can you manipulate the LFO on oscillator 2 on that sound, I'd be like, no problem, and I would know how to do it. So it's because I don't ever want to be caught off guard. I always want to be prepared. And through that's kind of where my love for synths really came from. Sound design is way more fun for me than actually, I want to say, no, because performing is like the highest high. But programming for me is like, I prefer programming more than I do writing. Like, I just want to do that. You know what I mean? So I think everybody has an element of their instrument that they love the most. And I think that getting into the nitty gritty details of things where you're working with frequencies and that's really boring, I love that.
Awesome. That's like, that's where your passion is. Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Because I just thought, while I've got you, it's just nice because, again, you can see your passion coming through, like when you talk about it. And like, but for some people sitting there and working all this stuff out is really scary. But it's a nice story you tell about the IAMX thing, because again, perception is everything in the industry.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah, and it's sometimes it blows my mind, and I can't work out whether it sucks or it's a good thing. But like, the fact of the matter is, you didn't know what you were doing at first, like, but you learned and you made it happen, and that I think is relatable. People could, if you really want to make something happen, although maybe sleeping 3 hours a night and not eating, not so great.
Yeah, that was a total extreme case, and I wouldn't ever recommend that route, and that's bringing it all back to the ADD thing.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Like, to be transparent, I do the same thing when I'm doing something, and I always say, if I do like a talk or something, I'm always like, don't do it the way I did it, because it's not healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'm with you on that, absolutely. But it's a good story to tell, and it makes people. I think from that, people are going to go, well, if Sammy can go into that situation, that pressure, and deal with it, and get it done, and be where you are now, I think it's a great example. So thank you very much for sharing that. Just to finish off, because I could talk to you for hours. But I'm like, I'm going to go eat some dinner. Talking about eating, I'm going to go eat some food. Dinner,
absolutely, yeah.
It's like 8:30, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably eat some food. I'm like, I'm fighting the temptation not to edit all this tonight and not. Oh
no, I know, and then that's you have to regulate yourself.
What I mean, this is the regulation. But to finish off, what is your message to the people that have supported you musically? You talked about some of your friends there, obviously your family as well. We've talked off camera about some of the people around you that are supportive. what is your message to the people that that have supported you through your career with your ADHD as well, and people that will continue to support you in the future?
Oh, that's a really broad spectrum of people, but I have the same things to say to everyone. Is I cannot express how much gratitude that I have for people that have just joined the journey or that have been a part of my journey since the beginning. I come into contact with those people every so often. They're like, I followed you from these days or whatever. And it's like, wow, I'm so grateful that you find me so interesting, or you find what I'm doing interesting enough to follow me for so long. And from the bottom of my heart, like, for however they follow me, whatever the reason is, like, I cannot express how much that makes my heart full. You know what I mean? And people that interact with me, that enjoy interacting with me, my friends, my family, people across the sea, people that I don't see every day, but I can pick back up with them as if I saw them yesterday. I have this immense appreciation and love that when I think about them, and I think about the people that follow me with my career, like, they make it possible for me to be able to do this. They make it, you guys, all of you, you make it possible for me to be able to live my dreams, really. And I have really no way of expressing the way that makes me feel, except the closest thing that I can say is that it makes me feel very full.
Awesome.
Because the feeling is undescribable. Yeah. It's just, but it's full of love, light, positivity, and gratitude. So thank you everybody so much for, if you're following me now on my journey, thank you for joining me. And for everybody that's been here for so long, thanks for sticking around. It means so much.